hate you. Child of Cain. Bastard spawn of a progenitor who ate and raped his way to immortality. I know what you say about us. Your elders would have you commit suicide and fall victim to us. They are right to think such things. Yet, here you are, creature, seeking my knowledge. Pray now to your mortal god, for you have stepped into hell and we are its architects. You wish to know about us, to be as one of us, to transcend rather than ascend. Then first know this, I hate you. I will now assume a form more appropriate for our topic of discussion. This form I took from a man who was much like yourself, a seeker of truths, especially our truths. I twisted each of his limbs and fine-tuned his screams. Now I can mimic him perfectly.
Good. Now listen, before I tell you the truth, you will first hear the lies, the legends and fables that served as fundamental to the times before truth. Ancient times when the kind thrived in their young civilizations between the Tigris and Euphrates River, our kind rooted in the pine forests and crags you now call the Carpathians. It was there that the first of our kind, the Ancient, was embraced. Or so we once believed. The Ancient did not reside in Cain's cities, but instead along the forests of his beloved Danube River. The Ancient recognized his superiority over Cain. He wished not to ascend to the peaks reached by our Dark Father, but to transcend them. Throughout all of early human history did the Ancient weave his spells among those like the Baltics, Balkans, and Russians. Those Slavs came to worship and fear us, calling us those names like Khaldun, their word for something akin to sorcerers, witches, and wizard, a title still held dearly to some of us even tonight. We were indeed Khaldun, for we bestowed our gifts of seeing beyond sight and mastery over beasts in exchange for their offerings and sacrifices of blood. With our spells did we spurn and disfigure those who stood against us. We did not live among the mortals, nor did we congregate like the lesser bloods you call ancestors. Each of ours kept to our own domain, our territories marked by effigies of bone and twine. Our kind warred with all the foul beasts of night's creation, from Baba Yaga and her legions to werebeasts like Shadow Lords and even those formless creatures I once heard be called Soul Eaters. Though no foe was greater than your kind, the other children of the night. And so, using our secret magics and might in warfare, we took human cattle and shaped them into weapons of destruction against you.
Those 100-handed giants spoken of by the maggots of the Hellenistic era were
our creations that you may recognize now as Shlachta and Vazd. Yet your kind, the other bloodlines, were expansive and far-reaching. Your Romans and your Ventru and Malkavian and the Sombra hounds butchered their way into our land beyond the forest, and so with our maledictions and curses did we undo your Roman Empire. We were we orchestrated those Goths and Vandals and Huns, barbarians, all of them our chattel, into letting the streets of Tiber run red with the vitae of the hounds. At least that is what we once claimed. And then, the times the mortals called the Dark Ages fell upon the world. It is here we find our common ground, fellow creature of the blood, in that all vampiric ages are dark ages. But I digress. That dead horse once called the Roman Empire faded away. The mortals call it a dark age because of the stagnation that followed, but not for us though. This was our golden age of progress and experimentation, at least for a time. Then the diluted bloodline of warlocks, the Tremere, was excreted into consensus. Those wizardlings siphoned our forests of their magic, their
Viz, as they called it, and so we started our own war against them.
They countered our Zulo forms with their own alchemical abominations, the gargoyles. Meanwhile, on a different warfront, the Ventru and their eternally envious Carthaginian sister clan continued to dance their eternal dance of endless war within our own territories. All while the mortals and their inquisition against the undead was in full swing. Hosts of those German Teutonic knights interrupted all of our eternal warfare by throwing open our caskets and dragging us, all of us, your kind included, into their god's blinding eye. There too were the spineless gangrels who rode with the Mongols. All of these outlanders, these interlopers, confined us to our castles and crypts. They conquered far and wide, and so we built tall and narrow. This is why I hate you. Yet in my hatred there too is love and sanctuary to be found, not in our Carpathian mountains, but in the demon, the root of all, the spirit, the best that lies underneath them. Kupala. Some of the greatest of our kind, like Velia the Vivisectionist and Lugaj the Bloodbreaker, orchestrated a gathering of a number of our kin to a secluded place within the forests. Lugaj presented this gathering to our sires as nothing more than a youthful festivity, and so it was sanctioned. This was not the case. Our kind grew bored of our sire's inaction to your kind's presence in our lands. From all fronts were your interloping bloodlines, and from our front, ignorant, passive inaction. And so the progeny gathered. In the heart of the celebration, a bonfire, with flames and heat great enough to disturb all present. Yet in front of it, fearlessly, stood Lugaj in his Zulo shape. In his monstrous paws, which he raised high above his elongated skull, something red and gleaming. That thing, it was an artifact greater than Excalibur, Kupala's sacred fire flower. It was Ruthven who stepped forth from the assembly to describe what it was. A thing with the power to bind demons, or on this very night, to free them. Lugaj spoke.
Velia and I have studied the nature of the blood bond at great length. And with Kupala's aid shall we cast off our elders' chains. Stand ye with us, or will ye go to your doom in the pyre of the crucified god's minions?
There was a silence following Lugaj's proclamation, broken only by the sound of crackling flames. The blood bond had never been severed. This was the old sire's ways of monitoring us, of controlling us. The torture that would befall us for even attempting to shut our sire's eye is simply ineffable. The silence, however, was broken by Lugaj, covered in mortal blood, laughing and leaping over the fires with no regard for the sanctity of his unlife. The flower, the artifact, glowed with the approval of Kupala, and one after another did we frolic, all the same in the scalding heat. In defiance of our nature and of our kind, in defiance of our sires. It was that moment that the Sabbat was born. This was the first Auctoritus Vitae, and our hearts were unburdened from the illusions of fear. It only took until the following night before our elders noticed our absence, and our war began thusly. Our sires used 1,000 forms and 1,000 curses in hopes of scaring us back into our kennels. Yet, we walked through fire unscathed and unafraid. We sieged and felled castle after castle. Some elders submitted to us and even joined our revolution. Upon those elders' inevitable betrayal, we used their own methods of torture against them. We became like those barbarous interloping Bruja, and those clans became emboldened by us. None of us would ever admit it, so I say the following in kind: we were also emboldened by them. And this gave way invariably to overconfidence. We ignored the omens of moonless nights and portents of comets trailing hellfire across it. In our ignorance, we stormed our progenitor's castle, the Ancient, his haven. The Ancient's groundkeepers and retainers possessed once incalculable power, though we consumed our sire's blood and rendered this opposition into ankle-deep shreddings of bone, blood, gristle, and dust. Lugaj, covered in skin and corpse fluid that dripped off his hide, exhumed our torpid ancient from his place. He was a weak, grub-like thing, writhing and helpless, stricken with quiet. It took an entire hour for Lugaj to drain the ancient of his blood and inherit his legacy. Lugaj was now champion of our kind, and so he took the great burden of sinking into an eternal torpor to watch over and protect us until and from the final night. When the lesser bloodlines heard of our great feat, those 7 clans confederated under charters and bylaws like a mortal merchant company. This is the reason your Camarilla exists. Your elders feared us who favored only the apex. This union was effective nonetheless, as the anarchs of the era were sent scattering by Camarilla supplicants. This was also the case for the Assamites, who were newly cursed by the Tremere and thus forced back into their arid deserts. It was only a matter of time before the Camarilla and their warlocks turned their attention in full to us, we who had committed what they deemed the ultimate sin, so we formed a union of our own. The La Sombra, who once led the Sea People to the Greeks so long ago, were the only other bloodline that valued true power. They too had consumed their own progenitor, and they too refused the notion of surrender. Ours and the La Sombra rallied together under our own flag. Remnants of the Anarchs and other Camarilla defectors were welcomed into our fold. All of us were oath-sworn through ceremonial Valdery. We swore to meet final death rather than waste away into the next elder to be consumed. It was in this union that we became a force capable of withstanding the hexes cast by the Tremere. We used tactics considered forbidden by the Camarilla. We washed over the forests as disfigured, misshapen beasts, embraced the masses, subjugated the worthy, and cast away the weak to Camarilla mutts. The mortal peasants referred to all of our kind as Sabbat, believing us to be witches, cultists, bailists, these people that harbored Abrahamic demon spawn. Some of the more educated kindred quite rudely assumed us to be the proper reincarnation of the cowardly Baali. Regardless, for hundreds of years, lesser elders fell to our fangs, and so they retreated to their vermin tactics of waging their war against us behind their kine and ghouls, weaponized under mortal causes and nation-state propaganda. Guns and other combustion-based tools of war were used, effectively so against our Schlachta hordes. In time, Turkish Ghazis, with Assamite ghouls in their rank, scythed and shot their way along and through the Danube in the name of the Ottoman Empire. We found their crescent little more tolerable than the cross. It was around then, in the later 1400s, that the scourge of our clan, Vlad Tepes, the dragon, the prince of darkness, Vlad Dracula, made his foul ascension against us. May 1,000 devils have their way with the traitor's corpse. We continued to build tall and narrow, attempting to secure the lands of our Kupala, our home front. The Camarilla spread across Western Europe and fed their propaganda to the mortals in order to embed the fear of our Sabbat into the mortal masses. Polidori's the vampires, Stoker's Dracula, all have been brushed over with subliminal subtext by the Camarilla. We became things to be laughed at, spooky Transylvanian Drech that goes bump in the night. At least the traitor suffered the worst of this caricatured propaganda. By the 1850s, a majority of our kind split apart, with some daring to cross and liaison others into the New World, while the rest remained in Kupala's domain. Manchester, London, New York, Chicago, all lands full of 30-story tall tombstones and mausoleums proclaiming new era ways of thinking, claims that God is dead or not even real. This was heaven for us. The New World was full of these potential hives for our great metamorphosis. Jack the Ripper, Nosferatu, or even Vlad Dracula were simply figures and tales that were allegorical to our presence. Any kind we saw, be they immigrants from Ellis Island or children working 14-hour factory shifts, all of them, kind the same, vanished, screaming behind the smoke of the industrial age. And the gears were excellent means of disposing of the bones. Then 1914 came around, and with it the fall of the Archduke. one of the many failed machinations that were made in order to reclaim the ancestor lands. World War I was the punishment for our insolence, though I will forever cherish the panicked blood I took from the kind of Ardennes and Verdun. I wish I could make trench warfare last forever, if only to swim in its flavor. My wish was granted for a time in the form of World War II, and I see it on your face now, creature. You're going to ask about the Third Reich of Hitler, one of the few mortals whose endeavors reached even the ears of the most isolated of our Khaldun. I must sit down and pour myself a beverage, for the very topic bores me, and I will speak on it only once. If you think Hitler was one of our puppets, one of the Sabbat's puppets, you have not been paying enough attention. This is what so freely earns my hatred. You are accursed because you fail to understand that with the right steps, you are in a process of ascension. We are the next step in human evolution. We are explorers. We are not flesh-sculpting torturers. We are cultivators of nerve endings and mind states. We are anatomists, not sadists. We are psychocosmic. The gangrel possess a decommissioned husk of a nuclear warhead, yet still do they lift their legs and piss blood like dogs. The Bruja are too stupid and prideful to stay quiet on anything. World War II would have been their greatest feat since Carthage, yet you haven't heard them make a single claim about it. Assamite, Cappadocian, Giovanni, the followers of Set, don't lie to yourself. Malkavian. Malkavians watched Jesus Christ himself from afar, firsthand, the only vampires to witness his living presence, and they did nothing. The Nosferatu? They have leaked and archived thousands of hours and the Tremere's tapes, rituals, and dissertations on all manner of experimentation. The Holocaust has nothing for them. The Ravnos and Toreador are feckless and incapable. The Ventru are sheep herders. The clan gains nothing from their flocks infighting. That being said, ours and the rest of the lesser clans did share one thing in common, however. Ours, as well as the Ventru, Ravnos, Skankrel, Bruja, Nosferatu, all types of Incarnu even. They will deny it, but I witnessed them. They were there with me. We haunted the KZs. We prowled Auschwitz, dined on the blood of both emaciated Jew and SS alike. Some of our kind used these camps as the groundwork for major leaps towards experimental metamorphosis. My only regret is that we didn't cut down the Nazis when we had the chance as repentance for the Czechs they pulled from our Kupala's homeland. World War II was nothing more than kindred taking advantage of kind being kind, nothing more. They all stink the same and taste their sweetest when relieved of their epidermis. But then again, everything we've spoken of is, as of considered by the age of now, antiquated and cyclopean. It is your burden to discern the lies from the truth. The post-war era was at first an era of entropy. A great deal of our elders, tired of our Sabbat, returned to Romania and stuck to the old ways of our clan under the flag of the Order Dea League. However, as the West continued their scientific advancements, we followed closely. We mastered those alchemical schools of pathology and anatomy, and of biology and of chemistry. One of ours has developed strains of both bacteria and virus capable of cooling mortals on a viral level. How we will use these pathogens is a matter of discussion. AIDS, flesh-eating strep throat prototypes. As of the year 2018, a number of ours developed the ability to cure, shape, and weaponize cancer. Elder vampires, be they Oradea or Camarilla, remained fastened to their hands-off approach to mankind. But to us, not the Sabbat, not the Khalduns, us, the West was our petri dish, our specimen to vivisect, poke, prod, shape, study, in order to advance ourselves. You, on the other hand, the only value you bring to our kind is your blood and body. You have taken the next step in evolutionary process of being, yet you squander its potential. One of our greatest, during the times before she was named Huaycos, demonstrated to me via vivisected Ventru that our kind's hearts only pump blood as needed, otherwise it remains in an immutable state of blood flow. Did you know that? Our hearts beat without beating, yet still do they beat in times of necessity, and especially duress, or when you intend on rousing your blood to cast forth your disciplines, creature. I can hear your heartbeat now. You're beginning to understand. I can sense it in your cold nerves. We are on the precipice of evolutionary pestilence. No wonder your Camarilla made us out to be boogeymen and fiends. It doesn't help that our modern youth has an aptitude for being the next Dahmer. They have abandoned our great metamorphosis in favor of the Sabbat's ceaseless cruelty, solely in the name of Cain. Compose yourself, larva. We seek the next Hannibal. We value those whose logic surpasses logic. Malkavians without their madness. The mad ones shape their madness rather than be shaped by it. We do not seek those like the Bruja, the lone soldiers dying for meaningless pride. We seek overseers and strategists. Unlike the Camarilla, our sires are not responsible for our progeny. They are their own autonomous beings, responsible only to themselves. We do not possess the magical acuity of the Tremere, though our sorceries are capable. Unlike the Tremere and their chaos magic and occult pragmatism, our magics are sacred, old, reverential, and celebratory. Spiritual. These Khaldunic sorceries bring forth the very essence of our ancestry. I digress. You may think of our clan, given our independence, as fractured. This is not so. We do not possess a formal structure, yet we are rigidly bound by dignity and respect, especially to the most powerful. Many of us were embraced begrudgingly and are treated as second-hand. I have heard a number of our youth earn this treatment in these modern nights, for they denounce their elders for being undesirable. These youths have, using modern philosophy, expressed ideas akin to the Bruja's Carthage, of utopias where, thanks to fleshcrafting, kind and kindred can coexist, where fleshcrafting can advance the very voyages made by the kind among the stars. Oh, to be young, forgive my digression. Our clan, generally speaking, is bound by respect and courtesy. Those loyal sorcerers who have awoken the Zulo shape and have demonstrated their wisdom to our sect are deemed as a Chopin. You would be a fool to deny the courtesy of one of these wise and ascended aliens. Above them are the cardinal voivods, whose mastery of the inner and outer self, the psychic and the cosmic, as well as the mastery of sorcery and fleshcrafting, are nigh paralleled. Voivods, for a time, were defined by a singular badge of honor, a cape, flesh-crafted from the hides of at least 3 Tremere warlocks cut down in personal combat. Monomancy may be engaged when 2 of our kind wish to vie for power, to which both take their Zulo shape and engage in both physical and magical combat, until either one falls or surrenders. What I have described to you, creature, is our modern clan culture. The Oradea League and even the Old Clan, however, are another matter of discussion entirely. You see, when the Sabbat was formed, few of our elders survived our vindication. Those who did secured themselves to places far beyond our reach and continued to exist in their old ways. These elders are colloquially referred to as the Old Clan, and they remember well the old nights. These elders rarely communicate with each other nor the world beyond Kupala's reach. They have, over centuries, cultivated cult-like hordes and broods that worshipped their old sires like gods, meaning the Old Clan has absolutely perfected the programming and conditioning involved in the art of the blood bond, better than any clan ever could. I have witnessed myself some of these elders and their complete immunity to the blood bond, a feat some of them passed down onto their childer, which have been sent down to hunt us. Some of the Old Clan claim that our kind, their rebellious progeny, are simply nothing more than fleshy hosts for parasitic beings known as Soul Eaters. That the Kupala's blessing was an infection, a virus that dwells within us still, a discussion for another time. As you can tell, we have been a scholarly clan since the very beginning. We have always sought to unravel then solve the riddles that underlie vampiric existence. We are the greatest alchemists, historians, and metaphysicians. That being said, we are not the kind to read a passage, then meditate on it in torpor for the next decade like the Cappadocian. We are creatures of action, and the mortal world is our laboratory. We forego our humanity in favor of surpassing it. This is how we keep ourselves grounded and tamed. We honor each other's solidarity and presence, for each one of us is greater than the greatest sum of all of mortal peer review. This has greatly influenced the Sabbat, and I've heard the shadows of the La Sombra claiming that the rituals we integrated into the Sabbat are secretly methods of worship towards esoteric eldritch beings. They are certainly mistaken. Look at you. You're now clearly ready for the secrets of the topic of metamorphosis. To us who walk this path, we understand that humanity is a precursor to vampirism, and so vampirism is the precursor to the next step of evolution. Vicissitude, our ability to flesh sculpt, grants us the capacity to reach that next step. We must only find the means. This path has naturally crossed with the mortal mages and their own path of ascension, and so we have, in times of the past, conglomerated with their kind. The old clan would place you in the peeling machine for suggesting the following idea, so hear this spoken only once. Some of these mages, during their archaeological diggings, masters of their spheres, have looked deeply into the ancient. These mages have come to a conclusion that the ancient was once a mage prior to his embrace, which perhaps explains our propensity towards metamorphosis. Now that I have uttered this blasphemy, I will honor my elders. The eldest and most conservative Sabbat of our clan fall under the banner of the neo-feudalist movement. They wish to reclaim those times of the Dark Ages, where our kind openly whipped and ruled over the kind like the cattle they are. These Sabbat believe, much like the Prometheans, that vampires should rule openly in this regard. Under their rule would be their caste of revenant and ghoul families. Neo-feudalists reached their height when the USSR dissolved, though they failed to use the moment to reclaim our Carpathians. That being said, a number of them remain as they were in their isolated and expansive estates. These plantations are used by the neo-feuds to play out their fantasy for the world. Some that I have met fleshcrafted the very animals and humans, all game for them to hunt and sport. The neo-feudalists, unlike the old clan or the Oradea, remain close to the Sabbat, though they have a tendency to break their vinculums in favor of establishing their own selfish blood bonds. Yet even the neo-feudalists, Oradea, old, modern, and young among our blood, fear another of our own. They are called the Reclamationists, and these zealots follow a creed with tenets that believes the apotheosis reached from metamorphosis is achieved solely via diablerie. This diablerie, according to them, is just as much a pleasure as it is a duty they're performing in order to reclaim Cain's legacy. With this mindset, vampires, young, equal, and old to their age, hell, even other reclamationists, are to be reclaimed. Their final form is the Neo-Godling, which is a form achieved once all and Cain's blood is consumed. This lone Neo-Godling would then populate the earth according to its wisdom, rather than idle whim. Reclamationists prefer to drink vampire blood exclusively, meaning their presence shadows the Sabbat at nearly all times. They rarely sire and are almost always assuming their Zulu shape. There, too, are the Diversivists, a sect that believes metamorphosis first comes from breaking free from the curse and corruptions inherited from the antediluvians. They use any means necessary to separate themselves from their inheritance, with some having developed bizarre new disciplines and even bloodlines. It was diversifist science that gave way to the creation of the Blood Brothers. The final metamorphosis subsect that we will discuss on this evening are the exsanguinists, who proselytize that blood itself is a prison shackling kindred to their ways. A perfect exsanguinist would be one that has shed blood from its being, thus allowing it to thrive solely on willpower alone. These vampires perform a special rite that involves meditation and fasting to ground themselves, though seeing lesser exsanguinists explosively regress to their base desires is always amusing. Though I may not be the first to claim this, I reason that the very essence that drives us to alien and inhuman extremes is a very human one. The most human qualities we retain above all is the attitude towards our superficial qualities. Simply imagine a toreador obsessed with her own beauty, now given the ability to reshape her face, to reshape the skin around her to perfection. What does that do to a mind? How long before the toreador spirals out of control? Remind me of your clan. I digress. To be gifted with the ability to reshape our form, even if only cosmetic, gives ways to power unseen by the ugly and imperfected masses. Experienced fleshcrafters like myself have rearranged our physical form for so long that we no longer experience pain. We shape our flesh according to pragmatic needs and spontaneous whims. It only takes a few nights before a young fleshcrafter completely forgets what exactly they looked like in life. Some of us elongate our skulls and carefully expand our minds. Others distend their limbs and fingers. Some of us can physically shift and slide our organs around at whim, while others can peel back your skin using only a touch of the finger. Some can see through eye stalks stretched to impossible lengths. I have seen the oldest keepers of our lore as nothing more than a hooded mass of finger-like appendages and a face composed solely of spilling tentacles, specifically suited to the creature's need of flipping through grimoires and manuscripts. The youth tends to implement body modifications and tattoos, proudly proclaiming all the unlives they have brought to a final death. Our legends once claimed that the Ancient was the first of Cain's progeny to discover the blood bond. It is a fact that our kind developed the first methods of breaking the blood bond. The point is, our clan is the most adept at the art of the blood bond. We are masters at heightening specific emotional states to those we bond. It is a critical instrument of torture. Some of our kind has enthralled non-kindred, non-kind with blood bonds all the same. Some of us are capable of setting up a delayed blood bond similar to the kind's concept of a sleeper agent. Many of these blood-bonded sleeper agents permeate throughout the ranks of the Camarilla, still waiting to be activated. Our notorious penchant for delivering pain can come from a place of sadism, I admit, though it is in truth a biologically reflexive and inherent trait of our being more so than a desire. Unlike other torturers who often simply perform the art as a means to an end, we use the art as an opportunity to hypothesize, test, refine, and research in meticulous detail the physical, emotional, and mental responses to pain. By discovering the boundaries of pain, do we draw closer to standing against Gehenna itself. Understand that we subject ourselves firsthand to torture far greater than any of what our victims are subjected to. We regularly spend weeks or months or years in the most iconic of torture contraptions just to objectively understand the sensation. Even the most alien of our kind value our solitude. Our innate demand for territory gives way to extreme sensitivity to our lands. We carefully cater to our primary haven called the Manse with as much care as we do our own flesh. You may be imagining halls of gore, lined with living furniture and textiles, a haven where the blood of the innocent is vomited out of living artery-shaped tunnels running along the walls. coffins made of misshapen humans. This approach to decor rarely represents our mets, and is often saved for secondary havens like outposts and vacation spots, if you'd like. We rest in strange places like coffins and biopods containing our soil in order to further dehumanize ourselves, thus furthering our metamorphosis. These resting places must contain the soil of our homelands given our perceived pain. None are allowed entrance into our territory without express permission, though this custom is suspended during times of war or a hunt.
On the very topic of solitude, I grow weary of your presence, creature. You have now been familiarized with the nature of the foundational lies of my clan, but before I have the servants release you, you must tell me the topic of our next encounter, of which you will choose from 3. The first, the lies of Dracula. The second, the lies of Kupala. And the final option, the truth. Choose carefully, creature. You're dismissed.
These vampires perform a special rite. It is your burden to discern the lies. Fuck you, phone, shut up. The old clan would the eldest and most conservative Sabbat of our
Hey, I wanna be a rock star. Hey, I wanna be a rock star. Yeah, remind me.
fuck you, future count. Edit that. The shadows, the Sabbat.